Yeah, I did. I think I did. Are you sure?
Good. How are you? You've seen our financial statement that has our chaplains. We are up top now separate. Beyond that, we used to have the non-union account. We were a big money because of that. Really equipped right here in the trailer. Donated. That came through the chaplains because put red tape on the meals. We had to say, well, why are you buying this? So we were the money. Pretty apt description.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, that does sound like it.
All right. Sorry for being just a couple minutes late. We got out of closed session just a few minutes late. I'm going to call to order our meeting and start with our invocation by Chaplain Hawkins. Sorry.
Thank you. Let's pray. Almighty Spirit of light, come to us with the power as that of the rising sun. Let there be light in our words and on our path, that we walk each day, that our council members walk each day. Let us remember always that you give us the gift of a new day, and never let us be burdened with the sorrow by not starting over again. Spirit of love, come to us with power to make us courageous when cold winds blow across the land. Give us strength and endurance for everything that is harsh, everything that hurts, everything that makes us squint. Let us move through life ready to take what comes to us from your hand. Spirit of life, when we face the direction of the sundown, let us remember that the moment will come when our sun too will go down. Never let us forget that we are called to live in and through you. Give us the wisdom of beautiful color. Give us great courage so that when it is our time to meet you, we can come with wisdom and light. Spirit of creation, send us the warm and soothing winds of summer. Comfort us when we're tired from the work you have given us. As you give to all the earth your warm, moving wind, give it to us also, so that we may grow close to you in warmth. Remind us that we did not create the web of life. We're but a strand in and of it. Whatever we do in this web of life, remind us that we have done it to you and to ourselves. Grant us wisdom as decisions are made which impact all of creation. For it's in your presence, God of love, that we pray. Amen.
All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Madam Clerk.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein,
Present.
Councilmember Holly,
Here.
Councilmember O'Brien,
Here.
Councilmember Van Overbeck, Councilmember Winslow,
Here.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Mayor Reynolds.
Here. Speaker card announcement. Anyone wishing to address the council on any matters listed on the agenda should first complete a speaker card found at the back of the chamber. Once completed, turn your cards into the city clerk, and the speakers are taken in the order the cards are received. Once the first speaker begins, no additional cards will be accepted. Persons demonstrating rude, boisterous speaking on matters outside the jurisdiction of the city council or engaging in otherwise disruptive behavior will be called to order. If such conduct continues, I may call a recess requesting the removal of such persons from the council chambers, adjourn the meeting, or take other actions as appropriate. Closed session announcement, Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Earlier this evening, the City Council recessed in closed session. All council members were present. For items 2.1, public employee performance evaluation, this item was not discussed in closed session. This item will be continued to the next regular City Council closed session. Items 2.2 and 2.3, City Council was briefed, direction was provided. No final action was taken. With respect to items 2.3, Councilmember Tom Van Overbeck did recuse himself and was not present in the closed session. Items 2.4, existing litigation, the City Council was briefed, direction was provided, no final action was taken. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and therefore can be enacted in one motion. Do we have speakers?
We do not.
Okay. Any council disqualifications? All right. Motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Goldstein,
Aye.
Councilmember Holly,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck,
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Public comment. Members of the public may address the council at this time on any matter not already listed on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of our authority. The council cannot take actions on these items at this meeting or requests made under this section of the agenda. How many speakers do we have?
We have 3.
All right, 3 minutes apiece.
All right, I'll call the first 2 names, and if you can line up in the middle aisle. Andrew Michael, followed by Bo Powell. And if you can adjust the microphone.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I know these things can move quickly, especially when you guys got stuff done. I'm sorry. So I wrote this speech. It's, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to shed light on a pressing issue that continues to plague our community. The low-income housing scam, which has become an unimaginable burden on taxpayers while failing to provide effective solutions for our housing crisis. Jamboree Housing example boasts over 20,000 units and a staggering $3.2 billion in asset value, all under management of a state senator's daughter. This raises crucial questions. Are these programs truly serving our community, or are they simply vehicles for profit? While I have seen these programs work effectively in the past, the current approach appears to be misguided and is fraught with issues. We now face a solution where inviting homeless individuals to our community is not merely a discussion, it's a grand vision championed by figures like Gavin Newsom. This vision seems more concerned with headlines than real needs and desires of our residents. Offering enticing subsidies such as $3,750 a month for unrented units will only attract more individuals seeking aid without providing the necessary framework for their integration into society. It's essential to distinguish between genuine support and superficial promise of assistance that fails to address the root cause of homelessness. Furthermore, this influx of individuals can overwhelm our resources, compromising the well-being of residents who have long-standing members of this community. We must ask ourselves whether we are truly prepared for the consequences of this grand vision, or whether we are simply setting ourselves up for further disappointment. As we move forward, I urge you to demand accountability from our leaders that ensure our housing policies served our community's best interests, not merely political agendas. We need solutions that prioritize stability and general support for those in need. Thank you for your attention, and let's work together to create a future that truly benefits our entire community. You'll feel free to contact me. I know all about these Senate bills, Assembly bills, how they work. We're kind of going to be under attack. I've looked into these programs myself, and I'm like, hell yeah, I can make 350 G's a month. You guys are going to invite a lot of negativity. Adam Schiff was here secretly last night at the Farm Bureau. That's a danger to our entire society, as we know. So I would hope that you guys would pay attention to what the federal government's doing and not what our state governors are attempting to do to our city. Reimagine how we're under a kinetic attack from our politicians that will serve a few, and there's a lot of people out there asking today.
Thank you very much. That's your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bo Powell, followed by Gina Bax.
Hello again. Everybody, supports our police and our fire departments, even our military and our vets. We all support them. Respecting them is something different. Nobody lets farmers spray the children of people they respect. Nobody. Now, I went to the Tuscan Water meeting out at Durham Park because I knew the orchard there was sprayed white with chemicals. Action News, the Enterprise Record, and 7R all set up, and the county couldn't have set that up any better. They have a podium right in front of a white orchard, chemical-laden orchard. They did their spill, and I said to the reporters, boy, that's going to be hard to edit out, huh? The reporters couldn't believe it, They wanted my name and what kind of chemicals it is and all that. Well, I gave them the name of a real reporter and told them that the building that now is the Ag Bureau, the Farm Bureau building, is the most sprayed building in the county. They took Adam Schiff there, and right across the road, it's surrounded, all four corners, orchard. There's even a winery right there. This is Adam Schiff's phone number. I called his office, told him what they're doing. There shouldn't be a mayor in America that doesn't know they're spraying your children, your family, the people who voted for you. The same goes with police and fire chiefs. Mr. Winslow, you seem really intelligent. You asked about sharing taxes. These people come up with amnesia. There was a $10 million overpayment that it was in the article January 18th, the News and Review, or January 4th, 2018. $10 million. It started a couple years before they started the methyl bromide. Okay? You need leverage. There's your leverage. You need leverage. Senator Schiff. If you folks don't call him, he's going to know. Thank you.
Okay, Gina Bax is our last speaker.
Good evening. I am here tonight as a concerned immigrant and American who recently came across a city council member post on Facebook promoting a Migrant Watch workshop. As someone who went through the legal immigration process, this feels upsetting. It seems to encourage people to resist immigration enforcement, which doesn't sit right with me. as I came to this country 30 years ago, follow the rules, pay the fees, and waited my turn because I respect this country and its laws. I'm not sure these workshops aim to educate individuals about their rights during encounters with immigration officers. But when public officials endorse such events, it can send a confusing message. It might make people think that breaking the law is acceptable, and that's not the message we should be sending. We need to focus on unity and lawful solutions. Instead of promoting actions that might lead to fear and division, our leaders should educate the community about lawful avenues to residency and citizenship. I know there are tons of resources and ways to enter and stay in this country legally, but it takes time, money, and patience. Promoting workshops that could be perceived as encouraging resistance against law enforcement does not help our community. It risks creating an environment of mistrust and fear, which is counterproductive to the goal of integration and unity. All this training might inadvertently encourage individuals to interfere with law enforcement activities, potentially leading to legal complications. Public servants could also be putting the same people they want to protect in risky situations, especially if they lack proper training or legal knowledge. I urge our city leaders to consider the broader implications of their endorsements. You got elected to represent all of us, and that includes legal immigrants like me.
Thank you. She's our last speaker.
Okay, thank you. Public hearings. The hearing to consider the draft 2025-2029 consolidated plan and draft 2025-2026 annual action plan. Miss Mary Jo Alonzo, our housing program manager.
Okay, hello, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Tonight, we present to you the city's draft 2025 through 2026 consolidated plan for the use of community development block grant and home funds. Along with discussing the consolidated plan, staff will also go over next year's annual plan, which will be for 25-26, and it includes proposed activities and budget allocations for next fiscal year. The city contracted with Housing Tools to assist with the completion of the consolidated plan, and the Community Development Director, Sherry Morgado, is here and in attendance and will be available for questions after this presentation. The consolidated plan is a 5-year strategic planning document developed through a collaborative process that allows jurisdictions to define a vision for housing and community development. It aligns HUD-funded programs with locally identified needs and priorities and promotes coordinated planning, community engagement, and efficient use of resources. The plan establishes overarching program goals, specific objectives, annual goals, and measurable benchmarks to track our progress. The city receives CDBG, which I discussed is funding that can be used for community development and housing needs. It focuses on serving low and moderate income individuals, households, and neighborhoods. The city also receives home funding, and that is to be used to develop and preserve affordable housing. Both of these programs are administered by HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, through its Office of Community Planning and Development. And as part of this planning process, the city is required to demonstrate how it will involve the public. Tonight's public hearing is one of the many ways that we've involved our public through this process, also outlined in the citizen participation plan, which was included as part of my staff report. Also talks about the steps that we took to make sure that we were including residents and those impacted by the use of these funds. HUD requires that the consolidated plan address significant national goals focused on serving low and moderate income individuals. That this year is defined as a household that is earning at or below 80% of area median income. For example, a household of 4 would earn $72,500 or less per year. So we're talking, that is the max of income that we're talking about for those assisted with these fundings. The goals include decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities. The consolidated plan is a substantial document that includes various components. I've listed those above. It includes an executive summary and process, which gives the overview of how we went about putting the document together. The needs assessment provides a thorough analysis of housing, homelessness, public housing, community development, and economic development needs. The housing market analysis is a comprehensive review of local housing conditions and identifies trends, gaps, barriers that may be affecting access to affordable, safe, and stable housing. The strategic plan is kind of a description of all those and talks about how we're going to reach the goals that we've identified within the 5-year plan. Included in this plan is next year's 1-year plan, which is our annual plan. And I will go into more detail about that in the future presentation. So also included with the consolidated plan is a citizen participation plan, which was slightly updated from what we had previously had from the last 5 years. And we have an updated analysis of impediments to fair housing. And also included is a list of how we provided public notices and outreach to our public. Everything is included in attachment B to my staff report. I would say that the report comes from an online portal that we use through HUD. So it's a system-generated document. And so excuse us if there are some formatting inconsistencies within the document, but it is what we get when we put all of the data in there. Speaking of data, this is a list of data sources that were used to put together the report. Not only are we using HUD data sources, we're using community surveys, census data. We undertake numerous surveys with local agencies such as the COC, the Public Housing Authority. We talk with service providers. We look at the local market. We provide community input through meetings. And we also look at adopted local plans and reports that are currently being undertaken. So the 5-year consolidated plan includes 5 overarching priority needs. Those are listed here, including 12 goals as shown on the table. The priority needs and goals were developed through our public engagement process, like I said, through interviews with our stakeholders, with an overarching goal of aligning those goals with directives outlined in the City Council approved housing element and through our last 5-year consolidated plan. Priority need 1 is affordable housing. Goals of this priority include the development of homeowner units, the development of multifamily units, rehab of rental units, rehabilitation of owner-occupied units, and infrastructure to support affordable housing. Some examples of what we have spent funding on in the past include the development of a couple of affordable housing projects, the foundation including one, and then I have the sketch drawing of the Habitat project that we're working on right now with Habitat Butte County. It's called Roslyn Court. It's going to be 5 units, which includes an ADU. And then Creekside Place, which was completed a couple years ago. And then also in the bottom right corner is the North Creek Crossings 1 and 2, which also received CDBG and home funding. Priority needs 2 and 3 revolve around homeless prevention and homeless services. Those can include providing rental assistance through our tenant-based rental assistance program and providing non-homeless public services. For example, funding Chico Meals on Wheels, Peg Taylor Center. Homeless services include funding nonprofits, different emergency shelters, and agencies that provide homeless services in town. And then also funding can be used for homeless public facilities. Priorities 4 and 5 include neighborhood revitalization, which includes code enforcement, and that is the hope there is that together with other city improvements and services, code enforcement can mitigate the decline and will support the neighborhood improvement of these areas in our town. Another goal is capital and public improvements. That could include sidewalks, improvements, curbs, gutters, lightings, accessibility, including ADA compliance. And the last is economic development, and the goal for that is micro enterprise assistance. This was helping small businesses either with one-on-one counseling or training, and the city has funded Small Business Development Center in the past. Okay, now that's a lot. Those are some lofty priority needs and 12 goals that serve as a strategic framework for maximizing the impact of our limited HUD funds. I want to highlight that this plan reflects a commitment to leverage those CDBG and home funds with partnerships with our local agencies, nonprofit organizations, and private sector stakeholders. Proposed programs and activities were prioritized because they align with past HUD-funded priorities of council and assist staff in implementing the housing element. And here's the reality. Despite increasing community development and affordable housing needs, the city's entitlement allocations have remained relatively flat for almost 2 decades. Unfortunately, our allocations have not kept pace with inflation, rising construction costs, or the growing demand for services and housing, particularly in our area. I know this is a busy graph, but I want to focus on the 2 dotted trend lines that represent CDBG and home funding. You can see that those have slowly been trending down, while the solid yellow line, which represents national CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, has steadily trended upward. That being said, I do want to highlight that the city has seen an unprecedented infusion of funding from the form of disaster tax credits and federal CDBG disaster recovery funding over the past 5 years. That's helped in funding the development of over 1,200 affordable housing units. A breakdown of those units is included in attachment B of my staff report on page 191. If anyone's interested, it's also posted on our website. I won't go into the details of that at this point. Even with those projects, the strain on the city's housing stock and infrastructure has continued to grow. The demand for affordable housing, public services, and neighborhood reinvestment far exceeds the capacity of our federal formula funding alone. Before you in this slide is the proposed annual plan allocations for next fiscal year. This plan will detail how we implement the broader goals and priorities I discussed as part of the consolidated plan. And this annual plan includes resource allocations and expected outcomes. Based on the continuing resolution passed by Congress and signed by the President last month, the city is assuming continued flat funding, but then again, we do not have our final allocation from HUD at this time. So this is an estimated budget. We do plan to return to council in June, and I hope at that point to have final allocations, which I'll be asking you to approve at that time. Proposed CDBG activities for next fiscal year align with past funding priorities. These include housing programs and projects, capital and public improvement projects, economic development, code enforcement, program administration, and public services. As we've done in the past several years, we've utilized the CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee to provide recommendations to council, and this is for public service funding. We are allowed to expend up to 15% of our CDBG allocation. The the Citizens Advisory Committee provided these recommendations, and they rated all of the recommendations based on a scoring matrix, and the top 6 applicants out of 9 were proposed to receive equal funding. Again, there is a contingency plan proposed in my budget, since we don't know the final amount, but when I'll come back at the next public hearing, you'll have the final numbers. But right now, you'll see that I just estimated 50% of our CDBG and split that 6 ways to come up with this proposal for public services. Our proposed home activities include continuing our partnership with the Housing Authority and service providers through the tenant-based rental assistance program, homeowner development, the Habitat project that I talked about. Staff is also proposing putting money aside to assist with rehabilitating existing housing units at a Turning Point Commons complex that's owned by CHIP, and then administration expenses. As mentioned, staff and Housing Tools undertook a significant public outreach process to encourage citizen participation during the development of this plan. You'll see here that we have been working on this since last fall. We did hold 2 public workshops in the fall, and that feedback is provided as part of an appendix to the consolidated plan. We also implemented an online public survey, which was the first year doing that, and we did receive 450 responses. The responses to that survey are also included in the consolidated plan, if you'd like to read through those. And we took all of that information and put that into our plan as well. Okay, so next steps. This is a public hearing, so we'll receive comment tonight. Any comments received during the next 30 days will be incorporated into the consolidated plan. I'll be coming back to council, I hope, on June 3rd. That's if I receive the HUD allocation in time. And then at that point, I'll be coming back and asking you to approve the plan and our annual plan so we can submit that to HUD. The public is welcome to email public comments to this city housing email, or you can do this online as well on our website. The documents are posted there. There are, if somebody requests like a physical copy, they can call our office and request that, and we can have them pick that up if they want to view it in paper copy. All right, this concludes my report, and Sherry and I are available if you have any comments, questions.
All right, does anybody have a question for Mary Jo? Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So in the past, the CDBG grants have been approved by the council. Why is that not the case today?
These are just the funding recommendations that come from the committee.
Okay.
So you will approve the final recommendations.
Okay. And why isn't the Jesus Center on there?
Jesus Center did not apply for funding this year.
Good answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody on this end? I had one quick question. The plan for the public services part of it, who sets those priorities and how does the ranking happen? And does that get revisited every year, the 1 through 6 for assisting people?
Yes, so the priorities are established through the consolidated planning process. Because we were not completed with this process of 25-29, we use the priorities from the last 5-year plan, which are very similar to these priorities. And so the committee takes those priorities. We have a scoring rubric that's based on what the application, all the questions in the application, based on different questions that HUD requires us to look at. And then the committee takes those and they score the applications, and then public service, the applicants come and give a presentation to the committee, and then the committee discusses those with staff and comes up with their recommendations that then come to you guys.
Gotcha. So if we wanted to see children, for instance, higher on the list, is that something that we could make a recommendation of?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. All right. We will open the public hearing. And do we have speakers?
We do not.
All right. I guess we will close the public hearing.
I have a comment.
And Yeah, I think we're opening the public hearing here tonight, and then we're still taking comments online. All right, and now, Vice Mayor.
I just have one quick question for you, Mayor Joe. Do you feel the 4 people on the selection committee, are you happy with those 4 people? And I didn't say it, let me rephrase that. Of course you're happy with them. Do you feel that 4 is adequate? Because it used to be, I think there was 6 or 7 a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so we have an administrative policy and procedure that we can have up to 7 members. Finance committee appointed 5, and that's what we had this year. And one of them was absent at one of the meetings.
Okay.
But they all 5 review the applications. I like to have 7 just in case if somebody can't make it, like for instance, to have a backup. But the 5 worked out this year. We're very happy with how the committee's been going, and it's a huge task for them to take. I mean, they have a binder full of applications they have to review, and then 2 meetings that they come back, and that's a tough decision. So hopefully it lightens your load a little bit.
It does. Yeah. You're doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we're, all right. Thank you, Mary Jo. 4.2, Residential Readiness Amendments, Phase 2, Code Amendment 25-01. Kelly Murphy, Senior Planner, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. My name is Kelly Murphy, and I'll be presenting this agenda item this evening. Before you today is a series of amendments to Title 19 of the Chico Municipal Code, which are recommended to ensure consistency with state housing law, implement pro-housing policies, and address actions from the 2022 housing element. The proposed amendments also resolve minor inconsistencies, formalize interpretations by the Community Development Director, and clarify terms and definitions. The amendments represent the second phase of a planned multi-phase code amendment program referred to as the Residential Readiness Program, as the majority of amendments are intended to streamline existing permit processes, reduce barriers for residential development, and facilitate housing production. These amendments are also intended to provide more flexibility in zoning regulations, particularly for key commercial and mixed-use areas. The first phase of the Residential Readiness Program adopted by the Council in June of 2024 implemented a total of 10 housing element actions. Included in this phase of code amendments is an additional housing element action, Action 812, amending the Chico Municipal Code regarding low barrier navigation centers as defined by Assembly Bill 101. A little bit of the legislative background here. Low barrier navigation centers provide temporary shelter and supportive services for individuals experiencing homelessness. Assembly Bill 101 mandates that low barrier navigation centers be allowed by right in areas zoned for mixed use and non-residential zones permitting multifamily residential uses. Amendments to the land use tables in chapters 1942, 1944, and 1946 are proposed to create a new land use category for low barrier navigation centers, and the application procedures and requirements are established in a new code section for consistency with state law and to implement housing element Action 812. In addition, several new laws affecting accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, took effect this last year, further reducing regulatory barriers and encouraging small-scale infill housing, including Senate Bill 1211, which increases the maximum number of ADUs allowed on multifamily properties from 2 up to 8, depending on the number of existing primary units. Amendments to the city's ADU ordinance are necessary for consistency with SB 1211. AB 1033 allows cities to permit ADUs to be sold separately from the primary residence, provided they are a part of a community land trust or similar affordable housing model. This expands a local jurisdiction's authority, but does not require changes to be made. AB 976 permanently eliminates owner occupancy requirements for ADUs, removing a restriction that previously limited rental flexibility. Owner occupancies for ADUs have been previously eliminated citywide, so no code amendments are required or proposed. Finally, AB 1332 requires local jurisdictions to establish pre-approved ADU programs. The City of Chico launched its ADU program in 2020. These plans are pre-approved by the Building Division, streamlining the permit process and reducing costs for homeowners. The City of Chico is actively pursuing a pro-housing designation from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, to demonstrate its commitment to removing barriers to housing production and implementing policies that promote affordability and development efficiency. This designation, awarded to jurisdictions that adopt pro-housing policies, enhances the city's competitiveness for state housing and infrastructure funding. As part of this effort, proposed amendments to Chapter 1962, Density Bonus Law, are recommended to expand local incentives for affordable housing projects. These changes do align with the government code, ensuring Chico maximizes density bonuses, concessions, and parking reductions for qualifying developments. By streamlining affordability incentives and reinforcing pro-housing policies, these amendments support the city's application and broader housing production goals. These amendments do not propose any construction, demolition, or other activity that has the potential to negatively impact the environment and are therefore exempt from the Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Section 15061B3. Any future development projects would be reviewed on an individual basis for compliance with CEQA. At its meeting on March 20th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council on the proposed code amendments. There were just two minor revisions to the Planning Commission's recommendation. The first was a request to clarify that the reference to a CMD in Section 1928 stands for Chico Maintenance District. This minor addition is supported by staff. The second revision requested by the Commission was to keep the rooming and boarding houses land use category in tables 4.2 and 4.6. Staff maintains the recommendation that this land use category definition and corresponding references should be deleted. A little bit more context for that. The rooming and boarding houses land use category and definition should be removed from the code because it's outdated, inconsistently applied, and unenforceable in practice. The city's observed that many single-family residences function similarly without obtaining a use permit, highlighting a disconnect between the regulation and actual housing patterns. Enforcing the permit requirement selectively could raise legal concerns, including potential First Amendment issues. Maintaining the category does not serve the public interest, as it creates unnecessary regulatory burdens without providing meaningful oversight or benefits. Removing it aligns with the city's broader goals of streamlining housing regulations, reducing barriers to residential uses, and ensuring consistency with modern housing needs. Staff concurs with, we received a letter of public comment today from Cal HDF. Few notes here. Staff would concur with Cal HDF's note on the legislative reorganization of ADU statutes in the government code and recommends that references to the previous government code sections be updated accordingly. This is a clerical error that does not significantly impact the ordinance's legality or enforceability, but we'd like to see it updated. Additionally, where Cal HDF references square footage limits for attached ADUs in the ordinance, staff recommends that Code Section 1976-130 C4A is amended to clarify that only attached ADUs greater than 800 square feet are limited to 50% of the size of the primary dwelling unit. I think most importantly, the city's ordinance has been certified for compliance with state law and will be resubmitted after it is amended for certification by HCD. So that brings us to the recommendation to the City Council. The Community Development Director recommends the Council hold a public hearing regarding the proposed amendments and introduce an ordinance to amend Title 19 by reading of its title only. Again, you have two adopting ordinances. Attachment A reflects the recommendations of the Planning Commission. Attachment B includes staff's additional recommendations. That concludes my presentation. I can take any questions.
All right. Councilmember O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick question for Senior Planner Murphy. Kelly, just this whole rooming and boarding thing, which is an antiquated term, we don't use that anymore, but is that essentially someone renting a room to someone? Would that be considered a rooming and boarding?
Yes, the land use definition defines it as 3 unrelated persons living together in a home. So again, an antiquated definition for a land use that we don't really see being permitted.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Hawley.
Thank you for the recognition, Ms. Mayor. I'm really glad that you cleared up that Planning Commission recommendation, especially. I think we did get an email from that Planning Commissioner saying it was a mistake, and so I think that the staff recommendation is a no-brainer because of her comment and your clarification of that. I did see that we got that 800 square footage adjustment for the general requirements of ADUs, but I was also curious about the Cal ADF parking requirement alterations that they suggested, and if that is also suggested by staff to be adjusted in our code amendment.
So at this time, we believe that our ordinance is in compliance with all the state housing laws as it pertains to parking. There are several opportunities for parking to be exempted for an ADU project. The most, I think, ubiquitous is just being within a half a mile of a public transit stop. That typically eliminates the required parking space for an ADU. Per our code. So we are not proposing any additional parking amendments as it relates to ADUs at this time, but we will be continuing to update our ordinance for consistency with state law in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? No? All right. We will, thank you, Ms. Murphy. We'll open the public hearing. How many speakers do we have?
We have 2.
Okay.
First speaker is Ann Bykirk Kaufman, followed by Jacqueline Chase.
Hi. So I was the planning commissioner who made the mistake. So I had just thought that taking out rooming and boarding houses would make that illegal, and it was a rookie mistake. It was my first meeting at the Planning Commission. So I do urge you to go with the staff recommendations and eliminate all references to rooming and boarding houses in Title 19. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Chase.
Good evening, council, staff. My name is Jackie Chase. I participate with Smart Growth Advocates, and in that capacity, I support equitable, climate-friendly, and cost-effective growth in Chico. And I think that the residential readiness plan, as described, encourages the production of affordable housing in Chico's urban core that is in line with the city's general plan, especially with its focus on infill growth and on housing access and affordability. There was just one thing I read which wasn't discussed tonight, is some details about drive-through. I think this is part of the bigger Title 19 revisions. And I would just say that I hope in the future sometime the City Council just decides to not allow any drive-through instead of tinkering with turning radii and things like that, because they're dangerous for cyclists and they're dangerous for pedestrians. And I think in that case they sort of do align and makes sense to bring up here when we're talking about smart growth principles. Thank you.
Thank you. That is it for speakers.
All right, we will close the public hearing. And any other comments from, okay, we'll move on. 4.3, Assembly Bill 481, Annual Military.
Do we need to take a motion?
Mayor, we need to vote on that, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We were still in a public hearing. Sorry.
So I'll propose attachment B, the staff recommendation be approved.
I'll second that.
With the addition of the other recommendations that are at your desk.
Yes.
Someone got to read it.
The clerk will read
Okay,
it when
and
she
that
says
would,
it. And can you-
and that includes the ordinance.
2 items.
The additional 2 items on the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Chico approving Code Amendment 2501, amending Title 19 of the Chico Municipal Code to support residential readiness, Chico, City of Chico. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Sorry about that. I was
Mayor and Council, just for the record to be clear, that's attachment B, staff recommendation version.
All right, now we'll go to Assembly Bill 481, Annual Military Equipment Use Report. Chief Billy Aldrich.
Thank you and good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, and to our community who are here tonight. In accordance with Assembly Bill 41, I am pleased to present to you the annual reporting requirements. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation tonight. You should have received my report with your agenda packet. As you are aware, I presented the required information for future budget requests related to Assembly Bill 41 during the regularly scheduled City Council meeting on March 18th. We also held the required community engagement meeting on March 31st and presented the annual report and heard from our community members. We had a very productive meeting where we answered questions and addressed concerns. Tonight, I will highlight the improvements we have made to our annual reporting and use of equipment to ensure we are providing the greatest amount of accuracy and transparency into our program. I will also provide our request for additional equipment, the overall budget impact, inspections with violations, and finally, our total cost for the previous year. As I begin with the information, please feel free to stop me if you have any questions or concerns that I can address. So you probably noticed the annual report format looked a little bit different this year than it has in previous years. That's because we have done a few things. Number one, we have gone to a calendar year reporting instead of when this law was signed into place, you had to start reporting as of April 1st, and then we went a year from that. So what we found is it was difficult to capture all the data in 1 year without sometimes either missing something or double counting it. So we have now gone to a full calendar year cycle. So this is the last report where we might have some things that slipped through the cracks where we double counted certain things. But we're pretty hopeful that we didn't do that. We did the best we could to not double count those incidents. You also notice that the report itself is very streamlined. When I initially did the first one, it was pretty detailed and busy, but I felt like as the initial report was built, it needed to provide complete transparency and let you be educated on everything that we had internally and what it looked like, answered several questions that some groups that I met with in the community wanted to see in it. So, but now we've streamlined it a bit so that it's not so onerous, but still provides the required information by law. We've changed the reporting email for complaints to one email. We were having it go to 2 emails before that. So we now have one location for complaints to be received from the community. And we have revisions in the inspection and reporting process. What that means is that we have found different ways to do inspections to ensure that we have accuracy of reporting and use. So new items that we would like to look at acquiring in the next fiscal year. I presented those at our meeting on the 18th, but I will run through those for you fairly quick. We would like to add to the inventory one 40-millimeter multi-shot launcher. Currently, SWAT has one of these. We need 2 of those on hand to provide proper coverage at those critical incidents. Drones, we are still trying to replace some drones and add to that fleet, so we've requested both one small one and one large one. This was a new item that came up last year, was technology in remote-controlled cars that provide us the ability to get cameras and audio equipment into tight spots where drones can't provide that coverage. That is one that we had some people in the community that wanted to donate to that program. So they identified, hey, this is a technology that's out there. We want you to go buy it. But unfortunately, we had to tell them, we can't just go buy this stuff. It takes a process. They still donated the money to the North Valley Foundation for that unit, the drone unit. So that would be something that would be purchased through that donation account, but still requires your approval. Command and UAS vehicles are a must. So what we initially requested in our budget that you probably saw was the command vehicle, which was one of those large diesel pusher kind of vehicles. As we've grown as a community, our incidents, critical incidents have grown right alongside of it. And so we're finding ourselves in those situations where we need to have a mobile command vehicle in the field, just like you see in other cities. But what we found here as we've done some more work is that it's actually better for us to reduce the size of a command vehicle instead of having one of those larger ones. As you know, our streets are pretty small, and a lot of our incidents happen to occur on those small surface streets. So what we've looked at is kind of separating out those 3 units to smaller Sprinter vans. Each would have its own mobile command center in it, one for the drone team, one for our hostage negotiators, and one for our SWAT team or the tactical commander who runs that team. It also allows us to only have to take one out as that unit is needed in the field instead of a large vehicle. I know that the Director of Public Works would appreciate having smaller vehicles to work on than one giant diesel pusher. So I think that the ability to work on that is a lot easier also.
Chief, the cost that we're seeing on that, the $515,000, is for each one or all 3?
No, that's one.
That's for one.
One total price for all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually that number, if you recall, I told you we made a change after the budget was submitted, and to respect Barbara and her staff's request of not making any changes after submitted, we didn't go in and change the price, but we still believe that that number, actually probably a little less, is what we would spend on those 3 smaller Sprinter vans to create that. We are going to continue to add to our patrol rifle fleet, and the idea behind that, like I explained before, was we're really focusing on getting assigned weapons to each officer, and so over time we've been just slowly adding those rifles, so it wasn't one giant purchase for the city, and it's allowed us to slowly start to assign those to officers. And the idea behind that was simply that each person shoots different. You need to set up a rifle the way that person shoots. So we don't want someone grabbing a rifle that maybe someone is left eye dominant, but they shoot right-handed. So it's a different sighting system. So
I do have a question on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Aldridge.
No, I like questions.
Yeah, so I was looking at the police rifles, which we have 72, or was that updated for 73?
Yeah, so that was one of the, and I'll get to it back here, but during our inspection, we actually found that we miscounted somehow the rifles. So we reported that we had more, but we actually had less.
Got it, okay.
So if you look in that report, maybe that's where you saw it. In the inspection process, we found that we had 71 rifles. I take that back. 71 rifles is what was reported. We actually had 72.
Okay, I understand. So I did see the expense in 2024 was $83,373, and it was reported as being used once in 2024, but sometimes those numbers don't tell the full picture. So I'm curious if that was an expense from late into that reporting year and there really wasn't a lot to report as far as use goes, or are those really just not used that frequently?
Great question. We don't report a use if it's simply deployed in the field. What is reported as a use is if it's fired. And we had one incident last year where an officer fired a rifle. So that's where you get the one use out of it. The expense was, as you recall, actually you weren't on council at the time, but we had decided to slowly add to this fleet of rifles to get to the number we needed, which is, a build out of roughly 120 rifles. But the plan was to slowly build that out to defray the cost out quite a bit. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Chief.
Yep. And then also within those rifles is we have to replace our 2 sniper rifles on the SWAT team. They've timed out. So like anything else, equipment times out and we have to replace it. And then this one is very interesting. I want to explain it a little bit, but it's called the Spot Robot. It's the robot dog. And we're not asking for the city to fund that. We just need your authority to seek grant funding on that. There's plenty of grants out there for this kind of stuff. And this thing is pretty amazing with the sensor technology and things like that on it, places you can put it where you can't put a human. But one of the big things that I thought about was the community engagement piece with this thing for STEM students. They're using it around the nation for those community engagement events for those students in schools for STEM technology, So I know we have a big STEM program here in town, and I'd love to be able to have something like that. But again, that's only if we can get the grant funding to get it. I would never ask the city for that because those are roughly $700,000. Moving on, the budget impacts. Most of these items are coming out of our general fund. Like I said, there's donations for those RC cars. Others are already budgeted in our overall operations budget, such as those launchers and drones. Some have been requested in the current budgeting process, which has been presented on March 18th, where I requested your approval for me to move forward with the city manager. As we move on to inspections and violations, violations discovered were procedural, meaning that some of the staff didn't realize that I still had to seek your approval just to test out something. So we had some drones that were purchased, small drones that they were looking to replace their older drones with to just try out. They weren't actually deployed into the field. They were just tested at the station. And so they were procedural violations. They weren't actual policy violations being used in the field where they deployed that equipment. Like I said, there was no use violations of any sorts. So everything was within policy for the use and deployment of all equipment. But what we've had to do with that is figure out how do we catch these things before the inspection process. And what we've done is changed the way any kind of request for purchasing of that equipment comes forward. There's a different process for any kind of procedural deficiencies, providing training. That's going to be ongoing, and we've already completed some of that in-house. One of the big changes was Captain Pena, I think, who's actually in the room watching me do this report right now. He created a really nice and detailed process for deploying this equipment. So anytime an officer deploys it, there's a QR code they just scan. They go in and do a quick form. It auto-populates into the system. And so we accurately capture all of the deployments in the field. And then during this time frame, there was no complaints about the deployment of any of this equipment. And then lastly, total costs, acquisition, maintenance, and training of the equipment and the munitions totaled $131,126. All of that was out of a total budget of over $39 million for the police department, or roughly 0.3% of our budget. So, as I close, you can see we are very transparent and judicious in our use of all equipment council has previously approved, and are being good stewards of our community members' tax dollars. My recommendation to council tonight is for the approval of my request to continue with our Assembly Bill 481 program, our policy, and the city's ordinance on the use of it. Your continued approval will ensure that the community's police department stands ready to protect them, while also keeping your police officers safe. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or address any concerns you may have.
All right, any questions from council? Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Chief, I had a question about the 40 millimeter and 37 millimeter projectile launchers. Is that like a recoilless rifle? Is that how that works?
Say that one more time.
Is it like a recoilless rifle?
No, it's it looks like a short-barreled shotgun with a giant barrel.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's.
What's the propellant though? Is it?
So you can use. There's gas grenades that you can put into it. There's smoke grenades you can put into it. I don't want to get too detailed, but basically it's just large canister items that you can accurately place into locations from a distance.
And the foam, whatever those foam projectiles,
Yeah.
will that knock somebody down?
I don't think I've seen one knock anyone down, but it definitely grabs your attention when it hits you.
Okay.
It's meant to distract you, right?
Yeah.
It's not meant to knock you down or hurt you. It's a distractionary device.
Okay, interesting device. Yeah.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Oh, you were mentioning the robot dog technology. Were you saying that we're proposing to acquire that? Do we have any already?
No, yes, we're proposing to acquire that through grant funding, and no, we don't have that at all.
And what's the purpose of those?
So the purpose of those is they have multiple options for sensors on those: bomb detection, chemical detection, camera systems, audio systems. That you can put them into places where you wouldn't necessarily want to put a human, and it's a robot, so no danger to a human in what they're doing. And then, like I said, I'd love to be able to use it for community engagement with the STEM programs in town.
Okay, and is that different than this Transcend Robotics Vantage with hot gas delivery system that's also, I think, being proposed?
Yeah, that's something we purchased during the last cycle. It looks like a little tracked vehicle that's on the ground. This actually, if you've never seen it, it's a dog-looking thing that walks. It's pretty cool. So way different system, way different.
And that's the one that we've already acquired?
The robot that is, it's like a little RC car on the ground, pretty much. Just a larger version of an RC car.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I think that's it for right now.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we will open the public hearing. How many speakers do we have?
We have 5.
All right, 3 minutes
Okay.
each.
And I'll call the first 2 speakers, and if you can line up in the middle aisle: Margaret Swick, followed by Diane Suzuki.
Good evening, Council, and good evening, Chief. The goal of AB 481 is for elected officials to curb and regulate the militarizing of our police. It is not to celebrate the growth of a military-style arsenal. I have 2 points I would like to make tonight. The first one is our continued investment in military equipment is wrong. Chico has plenty of issues we could solve by redirecting money to perhaps painting and improving crosswalks so that children, bicyclists, and pedestrians are safe. Have you seen the lack of clearly marked crosswalks around Chico? It's dangerous. And how about eliminating the urban blight at 2nd and Main? I do want my city taxes to improve Chico, not cater to unknown threats. We have prioritized fear and military weapon investment over investment in a better city. My second point is there a symbiotic relationship between the Chico Police Department and Downrange Indoor Training Center? Are any of our military equipment dollars being spent at that business? for instance, to train, to purchase or sell weapons, for gear, or for uniforms? I ask because a friend shared a photo of a large outdoor banner at downrange that is deeply disturbing. It shows a picture of California Governor Newsom, a silly picture of him, with a huge letter F, and you know what that means. It's a threatening banner and a menacing banner with a target on it, of course. So, does the city of Chico really do business with a company that threatens the governor of California with violence? I ask that you clarify this situation publicly for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Suzuki, followed by Ann Polivka.
Good evening. I want to begin by saying I appreciate the new system that Captain Pena created, which assists officers in the mandatory reporting of the use of the department's military equipment according to AB 481. One of my biggest hopes is to see our society have a lower rate of gun ownership in our communities, similar to other countries such as the UK, Taiwan, and Japan. The US has the highest in the world. I don't understand why there even exists assault weapons and high-capacity magazines and all those other ones I can't even pronounce. So to me, the root of our country's real problematic, this is the root of our country's real problematic safety issue. Even though California has some of the strictest gun control laws in the country, it's still such a huge problem. The majority of the military equipment used last year was during the incident on August 9th in response to a woman who was firing a firearm. I'm happy to hear that the woman who was having a mental health episode safely gave herself up. I'm also curious about the details of the latest killing of Michael Oxley, which we'll hear later, I guess. I'd like to reiterate what I commented on at the community engagement meeting, that bean bags, which are considered less lethal, are actually filled with lead pellets and shot from a 12-gauge shotgun. There have been deaths and serious injuries associated with the beanbag rounds, but fortunately not in our area, and I hope they never will be. For many in the community, a major issue with the Chico Police Department, including more military-grade equipment, is the question, would these be used on peaceful protesters? They had been used during Black Lives Matter protests and Standing Rock. I request that Chief Aldrich make a public statement reassuring us that Chico PD will follow the law according to AB 48, which restricts law enforcement's use of less lethal munitions to disperse protests, and also increases frequency of mandatory use of force reporting, and keep our public safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Just get back to that. Ann Polivka, followed by George Gold.
Good evening, council members, Chief Aldrich, everybody present. I'm a member of Concerned Community for Justice, CC4J. We really appreciate the fact
Can you
that
use the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I'm a member of Concerned Community for Justice, also the acronym CC4J. We appreciate law enforcement's low profile at the Hands Off protest rally in March, April 5th. Just happened 10 days ago. And it was a very peaceful rally, peaceful march, and law enforcement was part of keeping a low profile, and that was wonderful. Due to the nature of these times, we request that Chico Police Department make a public statement, like Diane was saying, in the local newspaper, Facebook, social media, providing assurances that the department intends going forwards to keep our community safe as we exercise our First Amendment assembly rights. Hopefully, all council members also are aware of, under California law, kinetic energy projectiles and chemical agents, so that would be rubber bullets and other kinds of projectiles, and tear gas and other kinds of chemicals, are actually military equipment. They're classified that way. We request that before council approves the police department's military equipment use report that the police department actually describes specifically what uses of the kinetic energy projectiles and the chemical agents will be authorized during First Amendment assemblies, because there will be many more First Amendment assemblies, I suspect, over the next few years. That would be under CPD Policy 466. So will rubber bullets and other kinetic energy projectiles and tear gas or other chemical agents only be used by officers who, number one, have received crowd control training by post? That's the peace officer standard in training, as the law requires. And number two, also as the law requires, have determined that using these weapons is objectively reasonable to defend against a threat to life or serious bodily injury to an individual, or to bring a dangerous and unlawful situation safely and effectively under control. Use of these projectiles, like rubber bullets and tear gas for crowd control, is prohibited unless all the requirements of CPD Policy 46613, which is based on the Penal Code, California Penal Code, are complied with before use. We request that Chico PD develop a use policy for each item of military equipment it possesses. That means giving a lot of specifics, much more detail than has been provided so far for use. And it would include how the equipment will be used and also under what circumstances uses are unauthorized or prohibited. Concerned Community for Justice also...
That's time. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. George Gold, followed by Chris Nelson.
Good evening. The other day, Chief, you gave a detailed and comprehensive review of all of the new weapons the police department is going to buy this year. When can we expect a complete and comprehensive review of the department's de-escalation process and procedure? And Vanilla Chai Latte. In checking the police department's website, there's no contact us link. There's no email address for the chief of police. I have a habit of inviting friends to my morning sojourns for a latte among several lovely coffee houses here in Chico. If I don't have your email address, Chief, how can I invite you for tea or a latte so I can share my wisdom and perspective with you?
Thank you. And our last speaker is Chris Nelson. I never do.
You don't start until you start talking.
Absolutely.
Don't worry. You got, take your time.
Don't start talking yet.
Still not ready. Okay. Okay.
Hello. We're in the midst of a constitutional crisis. Our founders rebelled against a king and set up a government based on checks and balances. But the congressional majority has capitulated to the executive, and the executive is flaunting the highest court in the land. What that has to do with Chico is this. In cases like the Warren decision, many of you said terrible things about the humanity and rights of unhoused people, and you used city dollars to fight the decision. But you respected the court. The police followed the court's decision, and we had structure and purpose, if no perfect outcome for anyone. Now we are looking at a budget for military-style surveillance and aggressive offensive and defensive capacities for a police department that has always been able to convince City Council of their needs. My concern, under Democratic and Republican agendas, has been increased surveillance and the use of AI. I'm also concerned about the slippery slope into weaponizing drones, as has been proposed and paused in other cities. I really insist on policies and procedures to keep police power in check and a mechanism for review that is transparent and available to the public. I'm very much opposed to children being exposed to robotics as if it's something fun and good and, to be I don't know. It's terrible. But In the constitutional crisis of the rise of a dictatorship and loyalty to a sovereign being pressed on firms and institutions, I hope you can remember the Constitution, the First Amendment rights of free speech, and the Fourth Amendment right of protection against unreasonable search and seizure. This has everything to do with the weapons that you own, the weapons that you allow, and the people that you hire, like the ones who go to the down low and shoot at the governor's face or say terrible things about Representative Schiff, which I saw on the news today. So anyway, we have to work together. We have to maintain our democracy. We have to stand strong for the Constitution. And I have one more thing, is that today was tax day, and for context, I'm going to leave you each where your income tax money really goes, so you can see the cuts in social spending and the increase in militarism, of which you are a part when you have these military weapons that you own. Here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. She's our last speaker.
All right, we will close the public hearing. Any further questions or comment from council, and consider a motion? Councilmember Hawley?
Yeah, one speaker brought up hoping that there would be more publicity about the use of kinetic energy projectiles and chemical agents for crowd control. There is a section on that attached for military equipment use on this item, and there are A through K requirements for those uses.
Councilmember O'Brien?
So I just want to say these conversations are healthy. We need to have these conversations. I think Chief Aldridge is very clear that he wants to have those conversations with the community to hear all sides of this, and I think we have heard that. And that is one benefit of this particular law, is that we do hear about these concerns and these issues. I think that's healthy. That's how we should police. But I think we also need to be clear that this equipment mostly is defensive in nature and designed to save lives. And I think it's hyperbole to classify it just as military equipment, because a number of different uses of this equipment occurs in society. The bottom line for me is that this equipment will keep our community and officers safer.
Councilmember Winslow.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been through a few of these. I actually talked to Chief Aldridge before he was chief, before I was on the city council, on one of these. And my concerns sort of remain the same. I think there's a balance that you strike in all of this. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility to be holding this kind of, like, this arsenal of weaponry and these means of violence. And I want to say that I think that AB 481 is great because we have these conversations, is because we have this kind of reading on how we're using this weaponry. I mean, all this is very good details to have, but also this measure of, like, the culture of militarism that we have, because we do need to moderate that, like, over time. And hearing these things about people shooting at a sign of our governor, and that's horrendous. I mean, it absolutely should not be tolerated in any connection with our police department, in any form. And thanks to all the public commenters who come out and who stay engaged with this process and make sure that we're aware of where we might be acting in excess. So I think where I come down on the balance of these things is different. You know, we look at things like how many officers need to have rifles and crowd control weaponry, what kind of things should we have on hand. But I appreciate the effort the department has gone into this. One thing I will say, as far as glorifying violence and militarism, I think there's a slippery slope. People are attracted to the profession who like to do that. There's an anecdote in this report about an incident where a person was shooting at our officers, and they managed to use some of these tools to disengage them without causing any harm. And I think that's the sort of thing we should be celebrating, and that is a success. Yeah, that's worth sharing. So thanks.
Councilmember Van Overbeek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No one suggested that there were Chico police officers shooting at a poster of the governor. And I would suggest that the political idiocy is equally distributed in our society on the fringes. So I go to downrange quite a bit, and I've never seen anything like that. So my take on this, Chief, is that almost every one of those items, it protects your guys, protects the police officers, and it protects the citizens because it gives you more non-lethal options when you're dealing with a difficult situation. And that's point number one. And point number two is I think you've demonstrated through your service that you are an excellent judge of the tools you need to do your job, and so I'm fully supportive of it.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to note that I am a little bit concerned by the costs and want to note that I'm not sure yet, but many things that we can get from grant funds or perhaps their military surplus can have ongoing costs too. So I should have asked earlier if those costs are reflected in the projected costs for this, but I'm always a proponent of public safety and want to make sure that we're investing our taxpayer dollars into proactive public safety measures. I'm sure, we have a great report here. I'm grateful for this Assembly bill making it so we can have this conversation. Just want to bring up that we need to be fiscally responsible here. And I also want to reiterate what some of our concerned community members for justice brought up, that I'm also concerned in our current political climate about the potential for military equipment being used against people exercising their First Amendment rights. Thankfully, that hasn't been an issue here, and I hope that that stays the case. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
So I've won 2 elections, and one of the main reasons I think I won is how often, and when I visited with people, how often people would say, do you support Chico Police Department? I say, absolutely. And for the most part, those people said, then I will vote for you. And I was surprised at how many times I was asked about the Chico Police Department. I'm a strong advocate for the safety of the community, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. And you need these pieces of equipment and tools to be able to do your job. So I thank you very much for your service, and I strongly support you and all of your efforts by all of the officers. I see Lieutenant Pena back there. How you doing? Captain, excuse me. So anyhow, that's all I have to say.
So if there's no further comments, I don't know, Mayor, if you want to make a comment, I'm going to make a motion.
No, I've got nothing. You guys covered it all.
All right, so I will make a motion that council receive the annual military equipment use report, review the ordinance to adopt the military equipment use policy, approve the military equipment use policy, and approve the purchase of the additional proposed acquisitions for 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds.
I'd like to make a subsequent motion with the recognition of Mayor Reynolds.
Substitute?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve the military equipment use policy, which was excellent, read through that, and approve the purchase of the additional proposed 2025 acquisitions with the exception of 1 out of 3 incident command vehicles, the patrol rifles, which were only used once in 2024, and the Boston Dynamics Agile mobile robot with recognition that will be achieved through grant funding. But I do have very strong concerns over the upkeep, as it is around a $75,000 piece of equipment.
I'll second the substitute motion. I'm not sure if that's the process.
Okay, first and a second take a vote on the substitute motion.
Okay. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
No.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
No.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
No.
Mayor Reynolds?
No.
It fails 3-4. And then we go back to the original motion, and that was to accept it as staff's recommendations. And Councilmember Goldstein?
No.
Councilmember Hawley?
No.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
No.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
It carries 4-3.
Okay, before we go to a strategic planning update, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Sorry for the brief delay. Strategic planning update. Ms. Deborah Presson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you will recall, you dedicated a large chunk of time on March 19th for a special meeting to go through a strategic planning process that was brought to you by Jeff Bowen of Morrison and Company. And the council spent a lot of time with a focus on quality of civic life for all Chico's citizens. And I thought that since we had received the report, the promised summary from Jeff, that it might be nice for him to come up and talk to the council and see what next steps you would like to see happen. So, Jeff?
All right. Jeff, come on up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Great to see you all again. So I was joking, I put a collar on for you. And I know that I don't have a clock, but I'm going to keep it to 3 minutes. You should have in front of you probably 3 pages, 4 pages, given as Exhibit A, which is just a really brief summary of the work that you all did on March 19th, as Debbie mentioned. You'll see that I basically tried to have it be kind of a cascading waterfall effect based on the discussion that went from what's the city council's why, what's our winning aspiration, what are the priorities for this upcoming fiscal year, and then where did we talk about what a successful future looks like. So we talked, if you remember, 4-year, which is long-term, 2-year, midterm, 0 to 1 year, short-term. On the third page, you'll see that we start with the 3 main goals, which, as we're already discussed, safe community, number 2, long-term viability, and number 3, protect and enhance primary community assets, which are defined on the other document as being the university, the park, and the downtown for Chico. So I bring this to you here because it is in my best effort, my capturing of what it was that we discussed. So 2 purposes. One, this is what I recorded for you to say, hey, you missed it, or I think this is what we discussed. If there's any adjustments, edits, additions, subtractions that need to be made. And 2, to talk about what do we do now with what it's already been completed over those 4 hours on March 19th. So that's really all I have to say. You've seen this. It's pretty brief. Any questions or comments? And I know that there's some discussion as far as next steps that will take place.
Jeff, I've sat through, I don't know, a lot of these in my career, and you did a really good job. Thank you. And I think also you did a good job in capturing what we talked about. And I think at this point, we're in starting the whole budget process. Is, how do we translate these priorities into actionable things for the city to do?
Yeah.
So now we have to do our homework.
Yeah, that's right. Now the hard work begins.
I bet Councilmember O'Brien.
I echo that as well. Tom and Jeff, you did a great job walking 7 people with independent minds through a process which is never easy. So I appreciate your skilled ability to do that. But like you said, Tom, really the next step is the coming budget cycle, and that will go a long way in achieving what we have identified as a primary objective for our city, a high-quality civic life for all our community. That's where push comes to shove.
That's right.
Budget time.
That's right.
Nobody else? Do we have any speakers on this item? Okay, just making sure before we move forward or do anything else.
We do not.
So it seems like, I don't know for sure what's next. It seems like maybe we need another hour or 2 hours together. I don't think we have another 4-hour session by any means. Maybe we can come in before a meeting coming up. At this point, I don't see any real ability to change necessarily for budget season, probably, because we're going to start those presentations here in a couple of weeks. But I think under the objectives where we have the Vision Zero infrastructure staffing, I think for us to take the time to talk about those objectives and how they would play out for the next 2 years, and then we can review again in January and see where we're at and how we're doing on it. I think that's an exercise that might be worth us considering to do. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I mean, I'm looking at our agenda forecast, and it looks, we're talking about the 20th is when our budget hearing is. So if we were to develop some of these like thoughts in this presentation more to inform that, we probably should do it the next meeting, right?
I'm open to that. Can we take action on this with it on there if we decide that we do want to do an additional 2 hours on that?
Yes, because it's part of the discussion, and if you want to bring it back at the next meeting, we can do that.
Bring it back to have an actual work study at the next meeting, or would set the appointment at the next meeting?
Well, I believe whatever you want to call it, if it's a work session just on the strategic plan, or it's a regular item, it's the first item, or you want to, I'm not sure about availability on a Tuesday night at 4. I mean, were you thinking earlier?
Well, I think it would be easiest, since we're all coming here already, is there something else that day, that to just do it before?
We've been having our ad hoc meetings. We might have one.
Oh.
And in addition, I think you have class. No?
It works for me.
Okay.
Or any Tuesday at 4 o'clock would work for me.
We can make it work.
You can make it, can do ad hoc maybe a little bit earlier, because I think you guys are wrapping up. Can everybody check their schedules? I normally would not do that, but can we talk about doing, let's see, so if we need to get closed session in there, so we'd need to be here at 3 at least.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, what day are you talking about?
At our next city council meeting, and maybe we move closed session to the end of the meeting.
So are we just going to meet for an hour? Is this what this is designed to do?
I'm thinking hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to take that long.
I think 90 minutes would be great. I don't think you don't need another 4 hours by any means.
No.
So can we meet at 3 then?
say
And
3
then
o'clock.
we'll go to closed if we can after that?
And then go to closed, and if we have
And
to.
then roll right into the regular.
And go right into
Okay.
the regular meeting. Okay. So, do you need a motion or anything on that? We're just, okay.
I had it. Just clarifying question. So is the intent to go over these goals and objectives that we created and tie them more specifically into the budget, or what's kind of the
To talk about, tie them to the budget and to tie them and to help hold ourselves accountable as we're putting things on the agenda, and how does that fall, and what does that go in? And then Debbie can put these on, when she does the agenda, she can actually say, this ties to your objective number 1 and your objective number 3. So it really kind of ties it all together, and then we can come back in January and hold ourselves accountable and look and see what did we get done, what did we not get done, and what do we need to do different next year. And we'll do it in January, so then we can really have a better effect on budget, because we're talking about it way before, not 4 weeks before. That's how I see it anyway.
Makes sense, yeah.
Mayor, I
Yes.
just looked again at my calendar. I have a meeting that goes till 3 that day, but it's in Sacramento.
Oh, that's not going to work.
Yeah. So
didn't leave
All right,
with that.
then we will not set a date and time right now. We will email out some dates and times and get some approvals, because Debbie, Ms. Presson, sorry, has your availability, so we'll send some out to council then and see when we can get that done.
Yeah, we'll send that out tomorrow, and we'll get to working on it.
And Jeff, you're clear generally like what we're talking about, which isn't super clear. But if you were authorized to assign us homework for this, what would you say?
what I would, yeah, great question. So I would say look through the goals and objectives, and I would start to prioritize the objectives as far as your perspective, where they should be. So we know the goals are there. The goals are the goals of the goals, and they could be 1, 2, 3. They could be 2, 3, 1. Doesn't really matter. Those are the 3 goals you're focused on that you came up with during the discussion. But the objectives to carry those goals out is where priorities should be placed. And so that will expedite the conversation when we do get together to talk through what that looks like and where we should be putting prioritized effort.
All right. Okay, so we will, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the process. It was very enjoyable, actually. And I think some people were not necessarily looking forward to it, and it was better than expected. 5.2, 2525 Sanitary Sewer Master Replacement Plan. Mr. Ottawani.
Yes, and Senior Civil Engineer David Keene will be giving the presentation.
Welcome, Dave.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Vice Mayor Bennett, Mayor Reynolds. Presentation going. All right. Good evening, Council. So my name is David Keene with the Public Works Engineering Department, and tonight I will be presenting the Sanitary Sewer Master Plan update. So So the sanitary sewer is our collection system. It's about 280 miles of collection system that collects sewage from the city and send it to the wastewater treatment plant. Tonight we will discuss the purpose of the plan, go over the background, the analysis performed, some of the outreach and collaboration that was completed, as well as the next steps. So the purpose of the plan is threefold. First thing we do is update the sewer model. We have an existing model, so we go ahead and update that. We use the updated model to identify existing and build-out condition deficiencies, build-out conditions being aligned with the general plan, the 2030 general plan. From there, we have the deficiencies. We are able to create a capital improvement plan. So the previous sanitary sewer master plan was completed in 2013 by Carollo Engineers. The Chico 2030 general plan gives us an action item to update and maintain our sanitary sewer master plan as well as the system model. Therefore, in 2022, the city retained Carollo Engineers. Tim Loper is here in the audience with us, and he was one of the leads on the project and also presented the 2013 plan here at this council in 2013. So thank you for helping us with that. The analysis performed consisted of a flow monitoring program, which led to the sewer model updates, and then that led to wastewater flow projections, which I'll get into what those are a little bit later. And lastly, the major outcome of the updated plan is an updated capital improvement program. So the first part of completing a sanitary sewer master plan is to have a flow monitoring program. This is where staff hired a contractor to go out into the system and physically install gauges or meters into the system in strategic locations to understand where the wastewater is coming and what time of day for different events that happen. We installed the meters during the winter, so we captured both a dry time and a rainy time. Also a time when Chico State was in and out of session because enrollment does affect the flow in the system. And the reason for installing the gauges in the winter is due to a thing called inflow and infiltration. So in sewer collection systems, the flows can triple in the winter due to water coming into the systems from cracks, private laterals, cleanouts that are left open, cracks in manholes in a variety of ways. This is pretty typical. 3 is actually not a bad number, a multiplier for the city, so we're in line with industry standards for there, but it is something that we want to capture as those higher flow rates are how pipes are sized. So on the top is a flow diagram of the sewer model update. We have the existing model. We did the flow monitoring. We calibrate it for dry weather and wet weather. We're able to understand with our model what flow is coming from what type of zoning. So for commercial or residential or specific types of use, we're able to understand what type of flow is generated from those areas. Once we have a calibrated model, we can then use it for build-out conditions. So for parcels that are undeveloped, but we know the zoning, we can assign them a land use category and base the flow that's coming off of that, off of those wastewater flow projections. So this is an important outcome of the plan. These numbers here, you can see, they range from 200 gallons per acre per day all the way up to 5,800 gallons per acre per day, and that's per acre. So that's split spatially using the sewer model. And the punchline, the capital improvement plan that comes out of this, roughly $100 million over the planning horizon. This is split between existing users and future users. And that's because existing users will get a benefit when a new pipe is installed in front of their property. If that wasn't the case, then they would be included in the sewer main replacement program. So either way, the existing users will eventually need to replace their pipelines, or the pipelines serving that property. And the future users' costs, those will be paid by development through development impact fees. The map on the bottom, the highlighted lines are the new lines that will be needed to serve build-out conditions per the Chico General Plan. Outreach and collaboration, we of course made the plan available online. We did a media release, which was picked up by a couple local news agencies, and we also completed the CEQA mandatory 30-day public review, which you can see in the paper there. For meetings with the stakeholders, we conducted a technical workshop in person with local developers and engineers. This was held here at City Hall, which provided a good opportunity for those engaged stakeholders to understand how the plan was developed and how it will impact them while developing properties throughout town. And then for the public, we conducted a virtual meeting in the evening, and that was a bit broader general audience, but still designed to inform the public. So what are the next steps? We will incorporate the identified projects into a nexus study and the city's sewer rate planning process. As I talked about, the nexus study will be for the development impact fees. City sewer rate will be for the existing users. And then how do we know which projects are first? We do what's called a flow trigger analysis. So these projects are designed for build-out conditions, but what projects are coming first depends on how much flow is coming in the pipeline. Also, we work with our community development department to understand the status of different developments throughout town, so we're able to prioritize projects. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from Council? Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Mr. Keene, great presentation. Thank you for being so succinct. What is the max capacity of the system in terms of flow, and how close are we now?
This system, the collection system, has capacity constraints at different locations within the system. So the major capacity constraint would be at the wastewater treatment plant, which I believe is rated up to 27 million gallons a day. So we have plenty of capacity with regards to the treatment plant, and different lines have different capacity issues. So one of the outcomes of this project is that we only have one existing deficiency today, and that's a great thing for our system. So there is one small section that we could work on today with our sewer rate money that we could use. The rest is all going to be paid for by future development.
So what's a high flow rate day now? I mean,
around 25 million gallons a day.
Oh, and our capacity is 27?
Yes, and that's called peak wet weather flow. Did you want to speak?
I was just going to, confirm that that's peak wet weather flow. Our typical dry weather flows
5 or 6 million gallons a day. So inflow and infiltration is a major concern, and for all wastewater collection systems, because that's how you size the pipelines. So typical flows are on the order of 5 to 8 million gallons a day. That's our summer average daily flow. When we have a big, long rain event and multiple days of rain, the groundwater table rises, that's when we see those high flows.
Right. So what happens if that number, that 27 million gallons a day number, is exceeded? What breaks?
The treatment plant has contingency plans. They have ponds where they can store extra water. And keep in mind that water that's coming in, it has to meet regulatory requirements for water quality. But if it's mostly groundwater coming in and it's mostly stormwater, it's fairly clean coming in. It's not the high density, high strength wastewater that's coming in the summer. So as long as they're able to meet those water quality requirements, then that's part of the plan.
Thank you.
Any other council member questions, comments? Vice Mayor Bennett?
I was amazed at the map you have, which in orange was residences and commercial attached to the sanitary sewer system. I was amazed at how many areas were white. That means they aren't attached. I thought we were a lot closer to having a better coverage, but we still have a ways to go, don't we?
About a quarter of the city is not connected to the sanitary sewer system.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Good information. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Winslow?
Just you give great presentations, David. Thanks.
Do we have any speakers on this item? No. Okay. Any final comments? No. Entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. That would be Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Holly.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Good report. Thank you. Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck.
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett.
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds.
Aye.
Carries 7-0. And if I could just interject real quickly, Jeff texted me back and indicated that May 6th at 3 o'clock would work for that special session.
Does he have a jet?
It's actually, I think, on a different day.
I'm teasing. Okay, perfect. So we are on. Everybody put on your calendars, and then I'll have.
And then
Debbie
we'll send a
it out
reminder
on the city email in calendar. 5, 6, 3 p.m. Okay. Councilmember Holly's request: code enforcement penalties. Councilmember Holly, you're up.
Sorry, I'm putting that on my calendar. Okay, it's in. All right, this agenda item request comes from a previous conversation about a month ago when we were talking about how we can I believe how Council Member Bennett described it, encourage downtown property owners to make use of their buildings. This is just one specific idea, is potentially changing code enforcement penalties. I did have a discussion with Mr. Veg about this, and we went over that increasing those penalty rates would likely not have an effect, just due to them being limited by state ordinance, and as well as even property owners who have been neglecting their properties for years and years and years. This is a tool that has been used and followed up on by code enforcement. And our code enforcement staff reflected the same opinion, but I do think it should at least be considered and entertained by council if this is something we want to look at again. I did attach it for your convenience. And the 2024-2025 master fee schedule is $0 for under 11 days and then 11 to 20 is 100, 21 to 30 is 200, 31 to 40 days, that goes up to $400, and over 40 days is, I believe, an additional $100 on top of that. That is
$100 per day.
per day. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, so maybe no action is needed. That's a brief overview of what was suggested by staff. But I'm happy to take any comments from my colleagues.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Yeah, I read through this, and one thing that was kind of confusing me, I'm trying to find the specific language, was I guess the ongoing, I'm going to have to open it up again. Sorry.
Was it about the DCBA kickstarting initiatives?
No, so this was about the penalties, that the frequent violator penalty, and can I just get a quick rundown of what that looks like?
It means somebody who has been cited for an issue within the last 12 months, and now they're repeating it.
Mm-hmm. But is that different than, okay, so that's if there's a new issue instead of the ongoing issue continuing to rack up fines. Is that?
Well, as I described, if we had a property that had a particular issue, they were cited, they cleaned it up, and then a few months later, we're right back where we were, that would be that would fit the definition of a frequent violator.
Okay, great. Thanks. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and I have the nuisance code in front of me, and section 1.14.230 goes over penalties. And I should have clarified this earlier, but each penalty does already have an exception that frequent violators may be fined $100 during that initial 0 to 11 day period, that other violators would have no fee associated. And for all of those 10-day increments, frequent violators do get an additional $100 on top of what first-time non-frequent violators get. So the question is, do we think that's adequate?
So when you started the conversation, just to remind myself, Mr. Vieg and code enforcement said that they didn't think adjusting or doing anything with these fees would essentially do anything. Was that kind of what you got out of the conversation?
Correct. And I would say after we talked through it, I definitely agree. I think that there might be other tools in our toolbox that can have an impact, but I don't believe that this is one of them.
Gotcha. So it sounds like no action really is needed at this point, but maybe we agendize a different conversation if it's a different action that needs to be taken. It's what I'm hearing. I'm not sure. But Mr. Van Overbeck?
Yeah, I like the spirit of this, But I think given Mr. Vieg's take on it, and the fact that we put these in place fairly recently, so we want to give them a chance, give this thing a chance to see if it works. I'd like to revisit this in some period of time, 6 or 8 months or a year, and look at what we have in place now. And if it's not working, then go back to consider some of your suggestions.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned that it seems as though the current fee structure may not be incentivizing all of our property owners to take care of their properties, hence the discussion about the property downtown that many of us have brought up. And is there any room to adjust fees based on something else like property value? Because what if, a $100 fee is nothing to a certain property owner, but then we don't want to be levying huge fees upon somebody with a small house.
Mr. Vieg, can you answer? Some of this is tied to state law, correct?
Correct. But I think most importantly, we feel the fees get people's attention. And this isn't a tool that we're often using. And when we do, usually within the first 11 days, things get corrected. And then when they're getting dinged with $100, it's not just, often it's not like they're not paying the fee that day. It's something that then there's usually something wrong with the situation. Maybe a hoarder. There may be some other weird, unique circumstance. The building may be in probate. There's usually something strange. And so then there's a lien put on the property. And so we find that this is a good tool to get people's attention. And that's kind of the goal of it. I have always tried to suggest that the one property that we keep talking about downtown is a one-off, and I don't want to keep changing all of our codes and all of our penalties to address a situation that is very unique. I will say, and I shared at the last meeting that we discussed this, that those fees were being levied, and I don't want to see any eye rolling, but my understanding is that construction will begin this Friday, and I'm not sure if it's associated with these fees or not. And again, that's what I've been informed. So fingers crossed that issue will hopefully be initiated and wrapped up in a reasonable time frame, and we won't always be talking about that property as it relates to code enforcement. Hopefully. Did I answer the question, though, that I think the tools we have are effective?
Yeah, and I just wanted to know, if there's room to go higher and if there's a need, but it sounded like you said that it's not really going to make much of a difference. So,
But I would agree. Let's revisit this. It's fine to go back and review and see how this is working. Let's give it, like Councilmember Van Overbeek said, 6 to 8 months, whatever, and let's see how it's working. If we need to make any adjustments and revisit that. But I'm perfectly willing to listen to this again and hear how it's actually working for our community.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this forward, Councilmember Hawley, and go ahead, I'll let you have
Sure. Just the last thing that I should add further context to is that second note about how the DCBA is trying to somehow take ownership over this issue as much as they can. Audrey did follow up with me on this because she's super on top of it and always checking the agendas, which I love. And she did send me the Downtown Building Enhancement Committee initiative rundown, which I believe Jen is a part of, correct? Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so as of now, it looks like this isn't something that necessarily has funding, but the initiative goal is to create a vibrant and welcoming physical downtown destination. And I think this could be a tool in the future that could be worked with, but maybe we'll revisit that in around 6 months. And if you'd like to add any further context to that initiative.
I hate this thing. We just had our first meeting, so I'm not going to say anything at all because it would be extremely premature to speculate on what the possibilities are. So we just started, and hopefully we'll make some progress soon. I'll leave it at that.
And we'll have more information on that when we talk about this again in 6 or 8 months.
So we do have one speaker on this item.
Okay.
Rob Berry. You thought I was going to forget you.
But I want to say that I actually enjoy listening to a little bit of discussion before I speak because it gives me a lot of understanding of what you're talking about and what you're thinking. And it's clear in your discussion that you're talking about a very specific issue as opposed to the general issue of compliance with code violations. And I want to make a couple of observations on that broader topic, which is it is important to have a mechanism or tools to make sure that when you identify code violations that they're complied with, that they're corrected and so forth. And whether you have the incentives to do that or not is a question that I'm not prepared to answer. But I would also like to just observe that the code enforcement violation process right now is report generated, which means you would not be aware of a code violation unless a citizen brings it to the attention of code enforcement. So another thing that I would suggest you take a look at is at least discretionary proactive enforcement, so that the code enforcement officers can recognize a code violation in the course of their travels and raise a code enforcement issue without having to depend on citizen reporting. And then the final observation I want to make is sort of a very broad topic, which is you may recall that we submitted a voter initiative for a public nuisance, and this is what we're talking about is the public nuisance aspect here, that put the city of Chico on the same footing as a private property owner with regard to public nuisance. And it gave citizens a mechanism to report public nuisances that were generated by the city or on city-owned property as opposed to private property. And one of the problems with that is when citizens attempted to use it, we found that the city claimed that they could not address the nuisance because of the Warren Settlement Agreement. And so now we have a decision from the court that the Warren Settlement Agreement is going to basically stay in place. And you've now placed property owners in the position where they cannot address a public nuisance that is having direct and economic impact on their properties and businesses, because the city has sort of created this rock and a hard place situation where you have a public nuisance that you would normally abate, but your hands are tied because of the Warren settlement. And the only option for a citizen in that situation is litigation. And so I would suggest that you talk about that problem and try to find a way for citizens to resolve that without having to resort to litigation. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and that's it.
I did want to make one correction. There are some proactive code enforcement cases that are opened up. So it's not all dependent upon citizen complaints. And strangely enough, even I give some to code enforcement.
Strangely enough. Reported one.
I got a call the other day, and somebody wanted to know why they got a report of their boat being hooked up to their truck the night before getting ready to go drive out. And I said, we don't proactively do that. I think you made one of your neighbors mad. So unhook your truck. I don't think it was the city manager, different neighborhood, but so. Anyway, so I think we're good. We'll just monitor it, and we're not taking action on it, so we can bring it back at any time, and we don't have to do the year thing or anything since we're not having a vote on it. Okay, reports and communications. The following reports and communication items are provided for the council's information. No action can be taken on these items under this section unless the council agrees to include it on a subsequent agenda. City manager's report. All right, we're going to get one someday. Council member requests. Pursuant to APMP 1010, council members may verbally request an item to be agendized at a future meeting after stating what the item would be. A majority of council is needed for staff to agendize. Any council member request? Council member Goldstein.
I have a couple of them. First, parklets. Last meeting, it was brought up during our discussion on parking. And I spoke a bit with our Public Works Engineering Director about opportunities to encourage more parklets downtown. So I would like to agendize a discussion on supporting parklets downtown informed by staff.
Well, since I made them snarky comment. I guess I better second your motion.
Thank you.
But what was the wording you used on that? There's only one.
Discussion on supporting parklets downtown informed by a staff report.
Can I just make a friendly amendment that we, instead of using the word supporting, that we research and get more information on it, and based upon our research, then hopefully support it, just because, I can't talk about it because,
Shorten it to just discussion on parklets downtown informed by a staff report?
Perfect, love it.
Right.
Let's have a discussion on it, because I love the idea, but I know there's some strong feelings, and I want to make sure we're getting all our information.
So you want a staff report to come back at this meeting?
No. We're
Okay.
going to have a discussion that will hopefully lead to that.
Well,
if we all agree that it's worth.
I had talked to Brendan about this, not to put you on the spot, Brendan Ottoboni, but I wanted to talk about, I felt like if I just agendized discussing parklets, that there wouldn't be too much to discuss unless we can ask staff questions about, like, what's the history of the parklets? How might this look? So if there's a way that at our discussion, we can have that be to some degree informed by our staff, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so if we all vote to put it on, when you do your request and you type your thing up, you can attach anything that Brendan gives you. And so we have that ahead of time coming to the meeting, and then we can all have that and review it.
That sounds good.
We just can't discuss it now because it's not on the agenda.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
No.
Councilmember Winslow? Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
Carries 6-1.
Okay, Councilmember Goldstein?
All right, so this one might require a little more context, but I would like to agendize discussion of a study to revitalize the Park Avenue corridor. For a little context, I've been meeting with a group of stakeholders, including business owners, developers, architects, real estate professionals, planners, and community members, called the Park Ave Working Group, and they see that there's a significant opportunity right now for Park Avenue with the upcoming downtown revitalization project and the Barber Yard redevelopment, that it's at a key time to plan ahead for the impacts and opportunities to Park Avenue as far as things like zoning, development opportunities, and the infrastructure. And so it's a little unclear what this study would entail yet, but I would like to bring it forward that council can start that discussion. So yeah, would like to agendize discussion of a study to revitalize the Park Avenue corridor.
I'll second that.
Okay. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
I'll agree to discuss, yes.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Mayor Reynolds?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
All right, is that all? All right.
I
you
can do
said
one
two,
more. I
sorry.
feel like this is
Okay.
getting to be a lot, but somebody brought this up earlier, so I might as well make it real quick. Per public comment from item 4.2, would like to discuss policy on drive-throughs. And for a little context, I'm thinking discussing what zones they're permissible in and if there are any standards that we want to talk about.
I'll second that.
Okay. Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Hawley?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Brien?
No.
Councilmember Van Overbeck?
No.
Councilmember Winslow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
No.
Mayor Reynolds?
No.
Fails 3-4.
All right. Anybody else? No. Okay. We will adjourn to our Tuesday, May 6th meeting at 3 p.m.